Board of County Commissioners acts as a quasi-judicial body when it hears requests for rezoning and conditional use permits. Applicants must provide competent, substantial evidence establishing facts or expert witness opinion testimony showing that the request meets the zoning code and comprehensive plan criteria. Opponents must also testify as to facts or provide expert testimony whether they like or dislike a request is not competent evidence. The board must then decide whether the evidence demonstrates consistency and compatibility with the comprehensive plan and the existing rules in the zoning ordinance, property adjacent to the property to be rezoned, and the actual development of the surrounding area. The board cannot consider speculation, non-expert opinion testimony, or poll the audience by asking those in favor or opposed to stand up or raise their hands. If a commissioner has had communications regarding a rezoning or conditional use permit request before the board, the commissioner must disclose the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place before the board takes action on the request. Likewise, if a commissioner has made a site visit, inspection, or investigation, the commissioner must disclose that fact before the board takes action on the request. Each applicant is allowed a total of 15 minutes to present their request, unless time is extended by majority vote of the board. The applicant may reserve any portion of the 15 minutes for rebuttal. Other speakers are allowed 5 minutes to speak. Speakers may not pass their time to someone else in order to give that person more time to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Commissioner Pritchett, our chairwoman, is stuck in an accident on 95. So as a vice chair, I'm going to step in, and she said it was okay to go ahead and start. So with that, I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning, Thursday, May 6th, Planning and Zoning meeting to order. And if you could just stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on to item D. Can I get a motion for approval of minutes from the February 9th regular commission meeting?
So moved, Lober.
Motion by Commissioner Lober, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to resolutions, awards, and presentations. And I believe we have a presentation by the Rolling Thunder. If you just come up, please.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. We have Lance Armstrong and also Don Weaver.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you all very much for your service to this county. Yes, I'm Dr. Lance Armstrong, and I have with me Don Weaver, the chair of the Veterans Memorial Center organization. And I have a couple of pictures here to show, if I may. I'm going to get off of this one, but it does show you where we are going in normally Memorial Day weekend. And this is what it can look like. Please notice the clogging of the motorcycles on the interstate. This is trying to get into Arlington National Cemetery, as you may imagine on Memorial Day weekend, something our organization would be interested in doing. Let's start there. We're Rolling Thunder. The term was coined by B-52s bombing in Vietnam, and the soldiers on the ground heard the rumble and labeled it such. We are a missing in action, prisoner of war advocacy group. That's it. You don't have to be a veteran to join. Many are. You don't have to ride a Harley Davidson. Many do. You just want to see our missing in action accounted for and recovered if it's possible. We meet on the fourth Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial Center. We also take a small claim to fame here in this county, as on May 11th, next Tuesday, we will finish all 82 schools, 86 schools, after our Brevard Public Schools superintendent, a veteran, asked us to complete the congressional mandate of posting that flag at all the schools. And we did so in less than 2.5 months. That's us.
The only place in the country for a whole county.
34 years ago, 1,400 motorcycles went to Washington, D.C. to ride the streets slowly in a slow protest ride of our slow recovery of our missing in action. This has morphed into 2019, where 1.7 million motorcycles shoved themselves into Washington, D.C. I want to say that again so every member of this county and council and commission understands. 1.7 million is what the FBI aerial surveillance found. That's my motorcycle in the corner looking to my right, and that is the motorcycle on the right side looking to the left. And this is just one of 7 Pentagon parking lots in 2017 ready to roll at noon. Simply up Independence and down Constitution Avenue, a short 7-minute ride. And it rolls for over 5.5 hours. We were told, do not do this again. Please, make it a state-run event. Last year, we know what COVID did to most of us. This year, same thing was about to happen until our chapter grabbed it. And then about a week later, 3 weeks and a half ago,
3.5 weeks ago.
someone made me chairman. A committee of 10 could have had this for a year, and I don't think the committee of 7 that I have could have done any less than they have in that period of time. We have found on the Zoom call states include Virginia, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, possibly Montana and Minnesota have been mentioned as riding in here to be in the Space Coast of Florida to represent the Ride for Freedom. Let me quickly run down through some things. I've given you the Cocoa Beach Explorer, which has an article explaining most of this, and let you know that it all starts on Friday evening at the Veterans Memorial Center. In Washington, we understand they have the Vietnam Wall. We will be setting up the rolling one. And in front of it at night is a candlelight vigil with Gold Star families like Don Weaver's here, carrying the flame of freedom in front of that wall. But unlike Washington, we also have the beautiful grounds of the Veterans Memorial Center, which Don can explain much more if we have a moment. This is a very solemn, hair-raising event, and we want the entire county to know they're welcome to attend all of these events. Saturday at the Veterans Memorial Center is where we celebrate what we stand for, and we will have plenty to see for the public to experience. We'll have music and entertainment and food, and we're hoping to have legislators at the U.S. level join us. I've invited Governor DeSantis. I've invited U.S. Senator Scott. These are the levels of legislation that we see our national concern needs to be addressed. We also welcome any of you who wish to attend, and any legislators, and certainly the public. Music will go until about 10:30, and we'll call it quits at that point. The next day is Sunday, the official Ride for Freedom. Kickstands up at 10 o'clock out of the Veterans Memorial Center. We look to go right across 520, down US 1, Pineda Causeway, and up A1A, dispersing at the port, headed towards I-95. Most of them will head right on out. That is the entire big picture of what could happen. Another idea that does occur in Washington, D.C. is we visit many different monuments. Unfortunately, on Saturday, our big day to sort of do alternative rides to many areas in the county that will happen, we're not allowed to go to the National Cemetery. And that's a little bit of a disappointment, but we recognize the rules of the administration at this time. We were met by Senator Dole outside the World War II Memorial, and we will have World War II veterans at this event. This is 2019. I want you to notice that little item in the sky. That's a B-52. I have about 1,500 hours and ended up as a flight instructor in one. And last 3 weeks ago or so, I texted a friend of mine and said, "Steve, are you still flying?" And he responded in 1 minute and let me know he was the new wing commander of the base and bringing the B-52 to our location for the air show. Needless to say, I offered to the crew, and they fed and drank my festivities, enjoyed all they could of my place in Cocoa Beach after they flew. And then that's when I sunk the hook. And there on the hook, the FAA is approving the paperwork, we hope, and we will have a B-52 fly over Sunday morning's launch. We are trying everything we can to duplicate all of the events that are normally done in Washington in a very short period of time. One little item I left out was the first chance I'll have eyes on what we have coming in will be out at the port. And I've told the riders that if you wish to have a blessing of the bikes like we do in the National Cathedral in Washington before the candlelight vigil, that we'll do that out at the port and around Fish Lips Restaurant. Now, I know there's a difference between Fish Lips Restaurant and the National Cathedral. I know someone out there is wondering if I do. But that's all we have to work with. And we're riding into the Veterans Memorial Center that Friday night. I can't think of anything else I really wanted to cover quickly, and I thank you for your time. Don, is there anything else?
It's been my honor to stand before you at least 10 times in the last 5 years. And the reason we can do this is because of you.
Right.
Let's face it, without the Veterans Memorial Center, we don't get tapped to be this place. So it's not just a question of heads and beds and tourist interest. It's a question of showing how much Brevard County supports veterans and the causes of veterans. And it's also, for Myra and all of you, the really grand opening, besides Key Lime Pie Festival, of the best Veterans Memorial Park in the state that you have created. $5 million later, we are there. And we can do this because we have those 82 acres. So I want to salute you. Thank you very much. We'll keep charging.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much. We only hope that you would consider one thing. Anything you can think of that we could use to help us, let us know. I am all ears. I believe he has a contact for me.
Yep.
Our sheriff's department is going to be absolutely needed in a few areas on that ride on Sunday, and maybe security out there throughout the weekend. That would be appreciated. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And I'll also put out a request for any of the local media, if they have any inclination whatsoever to cover this, to please go ahead and do so. I'll see if I can wrestle you up some additional coverage online as well.
I
to hopefully
thank you
get the
so
word
much.
out.
I thank you so much. The word has spread throughout the southeast United States, and if you're aware, our administration just canceled this ride in Washington, D.C., making a little spine-tingling more for me that maybe states in the Northeast have had enough and they're ready to ride down here too.
Well, hopefully their loss will be our gain.
It could be as much as if you wanted to split that 1.7 million in half. I hope that's not the case.
No scare tactics.
But I'm letting you know, I stood before you and said, beware.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Right. Okay, moving on to item F, consent agenda. And there's just an appointment on there. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve, Lober.
Motion by Commissioner Lober, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And moving on to public comments. Have 4 cards. I think Mr. Weaver filled one out for that item.
Yeah, I see him leaving now.
Elizabeth Baker?
So I'm here to talk about microplastics. Should I wait until after the?
Yeah, can we, if it's all right, Miss Baker, can we put you on J like Juliet too?
Yeah.
When it comes up?
Can you write that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Matt Lawrence?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Same thing, okay, I'll do that too.
Okay. Sandra Sullivan?
I'm here to speak about microplastics. That's Q2.
Okay.
All right, J2, I'll change that one too.
I'll say public comments on them, okay?
Yeah, J2.
So we have no public comments. Okay, moving on to item H1.
John and Terry Cobroth and John Bradley Cobroth request a CUP for a private boat dock adjacent to a single-family residence in a RU-1-13 zoning classification. It's located in District 3.
Are you the applicant?
Yes, I'm John Crova, 225 Riggs Avenue, Melbourne Beach. We just want to get a CUP for the piece of property that I purchased from someone about 2-3 years ago. He had it like 30 years and he never got one. It's just a row of boat docks down there, and I just want to have it legitimized like all the rest.
Okay.
So, nothing special.
Commissioner Tobias, it's in your district.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to approve.
Second, Lober.
I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias, a second by Commissioner Lober. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I didn't have any other cards, just yours, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item H2.
Michael J. and Annette Costello request a change of zoning classification from RR-1 to AU. This is located in District 5. The Planning and Zoning Advisory Board recommended approval of this application with a BDP with 2 conditions, one of them limiting the horses to 6 and limiting to horse activities only.
Okay, are you the applicant? Okay, if you state your name for the record, please.
Melbourne.
Okay. All right, what exactly, this isn't my district, so if you just allow me to ask them a few questions. What exactly do you want to do on the property?
Well, last time I talked for a very long time, and they said, all you had to do was say you want to go from RR1 to AU. So I do have a lengthy speech I'll be happy to enlighten you on, but I'd rather keep my comments to exactly what you're asking. So we have a 5-acre piece of property. We meet all the criteria for a AU zoning. We thought we were zoned AU we bought the property in 2001, so 20 years ago. Essentially what happened was, this is part of my long speech, so I'm going to have to bore you a little bit.
But you have 15 minutes, so.
Okay, great.
But you can save it for after the opposition, if you like to either clarify, correct, explain, I mean, it's
Okay, well,
sort
I'll
of-
just run through it real
Make it
quick.
quick. Just
I'll make
go
it
over.
real quick. So essentially, Wickham Park closed. We bought our property before that. People started calling, can we board, because there were no horse in the area. So I called out to the county and said, would this be all right? They said, yep, you're zoned ag, that's no problem. So that's what we did. We just kept on doing this until one of the neighbors complained. Code enforcement came out and said, you really aren't, you're zoned RR1, so that brings us to today. We're attempting to go from RR1 to AU for just a horse boarding operation, I guess you'd call
And
it.
are you doing lessons on your property?
We do not do lessons that I get paid for. There are trainers that have come out over the years, and they train riders, but I don't train, I don't ride, I don't earn anything for it. I just have a beautiful facility, and we let people use it, that's all.
Is that ever something that you want to do in the future?
I have no interest in training, do you?
No. So
No.
I'm Michael Costello. 5 years ago, we covered our arena because of the heat,
Yeah.
and we let people come in and use the arena. We don't charge anybody for that. It's part of her thing with the horses and helping the community out. In December, she brought 8 young riders in, brought a trainer up from
An Olympic trainer
from up
in
north came
Melbourne.
down, spent the weekend training these 8 riders. That cost us $8,000. We don't make any money off of this.
We don't
It's more of a
charge them.
community thing.
But assuming we can come to some sort of, I guess, we agree with assuming, again, we have to hear the other side, or I guess.
Of course. Do you want to
would
see
you
a
be-
picture of it? Would that be helpful?
No, I have
You've-
maps and stuff. Would
okay.
you be willing to limit the hours that you allow for training at your place?
Yes, I would, my thought would be anything after 7 o'clock at night, if anybody's in their training, they have to use radios, so you're not yelling, it's just low people talking. Because we have people who have their horses, they work all day, they have kids, and they can't get out there until 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. So as long as it's quiet, I'm sure the county has a noise ordinance. We won't be past the noise ordinance.
And there was a lighting issue. There was, the arena lights that we had were too bright. We've been working very closely with code enforcement, Steve
That was done, that's been.
Novak, and he came out and tested, and we are fully compliant. And it wasn't anything where we deterred. We've been working for months trying to get this lighting thing done, and now it's good, really good. We passed.
Okay, Commissioner Lober?
I just have a question, and frankly, if Madam Vice Chair is okay with it either way, I'm okay with it. I'm just hoping to help her avoid the potential of having a situation we've had the unpleasant experience of having in my district. Looking at this, and I'm going to ask Tad and Jeff to kind of reconfirm this as well, is there anything, if they were willing, the applicant were willing to add to the BDP no agritourism? Is there anything that they've stated at this point that would be impermissible? Or can they do everything they're talking about if they agree not to have agritourism at that location?
I believe if they were willing to agree to that in the binding development plan, a condition could be drafted that would limit the use of the property to preclude agritourism type activities.
Yeah, I just,
Can you define what agritourism is?
right, basically, and I'm going to ask Tad and Jeff to give me their textbook definition here, but the short of it, what I'm looking to avoid is we have, and I'm going to be careful not to malign someone in my district, but we have an individual who essentially violates a number of our rules and falls back on there being statutory protections at the state level for agritourism businesses, and he drives neighbors east, west, north, and south crazy.
But I don't know what an agritory is.
So basically, he's got, from what I understand, everything from folks that may ride or pet animals that are there. They have a wedding barn. They've got a venue with stadium speakers with a deuce-and-a-half truck, and it's like a mini theme
We
park
have a
almost.
tractor. We don't have a deuce and a half. We have a tractor.
I don't know the tractor's going to be problematic.
But no, I have,
Yeah, they were selling goods and running, retail. They were doing a bunch of stuff.
I don't have a room for that anyway. We only have 5 acres, so.
Yeah, maybe the safer way, Tad and Jeff and Madam Vice Chair, is if they're willing to say no agritourism, notwithstanding the specific uses they've identified here. That way they can
Yeah.
still do what they've stated they're going to do, just in case there's some technical conflict.
Yeah,
And
we
max
can-
horses at 6,
And
no
we
more
can
than that.
discuss it after we hear all the
Okay.
testimony, if that's okay.
That's fine.
All right?
Any more questions for us?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joseph Colombo?
Good evening.
Hello.
Can I take this off?
Please.
Okay, it's easier to speak. Can I get set up for a second? I'm gonna-
And when you're ready,
Yes.
just state your name and,
Yes, ma'am. I have a few photographs, which I'll hold up, but if I could present a few just to be passed along to the
as long
board.
as you can give a copy to the clerk.
Yes,
the
these are for your
record.
attention. Should I pass them to Mr. Logan?
Yeah, I can pass them around. Do you want maybe Madam Vice Chair?
There's one set, but I'll hold,
Or you
I'll
could
hold,
put
I'll
'em
hold,
on the-
I'll hold up my set.
Yeah, we should
Yeah, Dawn,
probably,
can you help us out with the document? I'm thinking that way everyone in the audience has the benefit too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
and we understand that there was a video that was submitted, which you could play, but it would pretty much chew up your time,
We're,
so.
we're not submitting that this evening.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take, yes. Good evening, Commissioners.
Name?
Joseph Colombo. I'm the attorney for the applicants.
And I'm going to stop you just for 1 second. The chairwoman, Commissioner Pritchett, is listening via phone. Just, Commissioner Pritchett? Is she online?
Oh, she may be muted.
Okay.
No, she hasn't called in yet.
No?
Okay. When she calls in, I just want to make sure that if she's listening, if not, then we won't include her in the vote.
Yes. So Joseph Colombo, I'm the attorney for Jeff and Karen Shepard, who live immediately south of the subject property. Their address is 2890 Appaloosa Boulevard. What's important to note this evening, Commissioners and Mr. County Manager and Madam County Attorney, is I don't believe a site visit was done by P&Z which fully depicted what's going on at this property. You see up on the screen there, that's the riding stable. You heard the fellow earlier talking about a B-52. I think you can fit a B-52 in there. I've been out there myself. It's huge. It's humongous. It's the biggest private riding stable I've ever seen. That fence you see right there, that's my client's property immediately to the left of that.
Okay. Shh. If you could just, you'll get a chance to speak when he's done.
So this is what we're dealing with. This is fully lit, lit at all hours, has loudspeakers, and is much larger than the applicant's home, about two times as large. And I'll move on here. This is, to give you an idea, for a frame of reference, there we go. My client's property is approximately midway through that water runoff, which is created by this structure because all the water runs off that building and it's flooding everything. The property line is about midway through there. And you can see where the riding arena starts. Moving on. This is my client's, and I'm going to address all these issues. I just want to go through the photographs first. This is my client's backyard patio where my client, who's in the audience, Mrs. Shepard, and her mother's here as well, they sit at night and they watch these activities which are occurring about 15 feet from their house. I'll address that further in a moment. But you can see the rider to the right there. That's a rider on a horse. That's the riding arena. Moving on. Here is another, well, you know, this is taken from their patio area. That's another rider getting instruction. You see the people in chairs. Those are spectators that come along. You see behind that a circus tent. That's the problem we have here. On the weekends, they have dressage shows. This isn't just about boarding and horses for hire. They have full dressage shows, which I'll address in a moment, and they have spectators come to the point where for some of these dressage shows, they have 4 porta potties brought in. 4 porta potties brought in. Now, typical construction site, you got 1 porta potty, 4 porta potties. These are all proffers to the board. My client can testify to all this under oath if necessary in a moment. Moving on. This is at night. It's fully lit. It violates county statutes county code with regard to the amount of lighting going on. This is taken from inside my client's house, not outside. This is from their bedroom window. At all hours. Here we are at 10 o'clock at night. Let's see. We only picked the ones that were late at night. There we go. That one's at 10 o'clock at night. You can get a sense of, it's a little blurry, but a sense of the amount of light coming out of there. We've got another one here, 10:09 at night. And this is from my client's bedroom window. My client, Mr. Shepard works at Home Depot. He gets up at 3:30 in the morning to go to work, and he's interrupted all night long with noise, loudspeakers, where there's instruction going on. What's happening is, I don't know if you're familiar with dressage and these types of instruction, these trainers come in and they're telling these riders how to ride, but of course, if you're riding a horse, it has to be loud in order to be heard. Furthermore, to mimic or duplicate what a real show would be like, they're blaring music at all hours on loudspeakers, blasting music late at night. Code enforcement was called, and of course, they were violated. Moving on, another one at, what time are we at here? 10:25 at night. You can see the screen in my client's window. Moving on. Oh, here's an invitation to an evening of dressage. Look at the hours. Saturday night, 7 to 9. Dozens and dozens and dozens of people show up to these events to watch. You run an event that big, the event doesn't just run from 7 to 9. You have to then break everything down. There's activity going on until midnight. What happened here is this applicant was doing all this for years. She claims she's not running a business, but it's curious to me that she has 2 LLCs with regard to her horse riding activities. I'll point them out to you for the record. She formed the first one, Fawn Hollow LLC. The 2 applicants are the managers of that LLC. That was formed back in 2005. It's an active LLC. Another one was just formed in 2017, and that is curiously called Fawn Hollow Dressage LLC, also set up by the 2 applicants. There's commercial activity going on there at all hours, sometimes 24 hours a day, every day of the week. My client's going to testify to this. She's ill and is home frequently. Her mother lives there with them. She's home frequently. There's activity all day long. May I continue? Briefly.
Ms. Bentley?
The board can make a motion to allow additional time if it chooses to do so.
I would move to allow the attorney an additional minute and a half to sum up.
Thank you. Does that have to be
Do we have a
voted on?
second? Second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to watch the clock because...
Farriers are coming out to do horseshoes at all hours.
Whoops.
No problem.
Sorry.
No problem.
Go ahead.
There's a commercial activity all day long. This isn't just about boarding horses or horses for hire. There's all these dressage activities, and with these, you have basically it's turned into like a fairground with the noise, with the music, all hours, the light. All this emanates. This request for a zoning change is because they got caught, and then the code enforcement started to enforce that. So they're coming before you, not asking for permission. They're asking for an excuse. They're asking for, after the fact, to be excused from failing to abide by the zoning code. Finally, they're the only house in the neighborhood that would be zoned agricultural. Every single other one is zoned RR. They don't meet consistency. The entire neighborhood has an RR classifications. They're the only ones that will then, that will be changed, which creates a precedent for these other lots, as you know. Respectfully, they bought into an RR zoned community, Lakewood Estates. I believe Commissioner Zonk is familiar with it. They should abide by the rules just like everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, may I ask him a couple of questions?
Thank
Sure.
you, I appreciate it.
Counselor, just a couple of questions for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at a zoning map here, and I just want to make sure that it's accurate as far as you're aware as well. So I would tend to agree it does look like there's substantially a lot of RR1 that's immediately adjacent to it, pretty much in every direction. Actually, I shouldn't say pretty much in every direction.
Yes, sir.
That said, there does appear to the lot adjacent to it on the right, the lot immediately adjacent to that does appear to be AU, as does the lot north of that, and there does appear to be some SEU to the west, just immediately south of it. So in terms of how this neighborhood is characterized, are you aware, because I've never driven through there, whether the AU or the SEU are in the same neighborhood, or are those in adjacent neighborhoods to the best of your knowledge?
I can submit, I'm sorry for speaking quickly, but I guess if I have a little bit of time, I can, with calm, let the commission know that every house on Appaloosa Boulevard is zoned RR1, every single one. The entire neighborhood, it's called, it's not a formal subdivision, it's called Lakewood Estates when it first came out of the ground. That entire subdivision is RR1. And staff, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's an accurate submission to this board.
And in terms of the actual property there, that area, is there a voluntary HOA? It sounds like there's probably not a mandatory HOA there.
There's not a mandatory HOA, it's not even voluntary. It just, the developer called this place Lakewood Estates. When the houses first started getting built, I submit to the board, there is no other commercial activity, and that's the heart of this matter. Wait, it's not contesting the rezoning. It's what is existing there now, what's been going on for years, as you can see, and this is going to be turned into. I mean, this looks like a Sam's without walls. I mean, this is a huge structure.
Understood, sir.
It's an enormous structure.
And Madam Vice Chair, if I can bounce a quick question by Ms. Bentley.
Sure.
Ms. Bentley, I just want to make sure that we keep, for everyone's sanity and benefit, everything on the up and up. Given that our chair is appearing telephonically, if she is on the line at the time of vote, given that it's almost impossible that she will have been able to see the exhibits, I don't know that there would be a problem with her voting if she's inclined to vote against it, but I'm just concerned if she's inclined to vote for it because she can't see this.
I do not believe she is on the line.
Okay, so we may not have an issue then.
She'll join us on the next item.
But I
Okay.
believe, yeah, she was on the line, but she got on the line late, so she shouldn't vote on this because
Right.
she won't be able to have the benefit of hearing everything. We've already established that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything
That's
further?
all I've got, ma'am.
Any further
Thanks, sir.
questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Karen Shepard?
Hi. Good evening.
Can you state your name, please?
Yes, I'm Karen Shepard.
And you live next door?
Yes. If you're looking at that picture there, I'm, as the pictures that Attorney Colombo showed, very, very close to the point of it's probably, if it was passed in permitting, right up to the property line where they can have it legally, I suppose. I imagine it wouldn't pass if it wasn't. But that said, our issue is not with boarding. When we moved there in 2012-13, that wasn't there. And my choice to move into an RR1 neighborhood, and that was in our listing. So I don't know how the Costellos didn't know that we weren't zoned that. We found it out. It's on the maps. Anyway, we loved the pastoral setting, the horses. What we have a disagreement is the activity, the commercial activity that goes on there. So if you say you're going to allow boarding, it has to be extremely tight on what does the boarding mean. Are they having their trainers and their trainers? Are they allowed events and clinics on the weekend, which is already going on? So if we allow more horses, which they want, this is going to be a complete lifestyle change. It already is, with the lights coming in and the impact of, we can hear the training going on. Not the horses walking, but their trainers, and any talk that goes on. It's not just like a neighbor talking, it's constant. They have a lot of activity. They bring in, trailer in people. They have horses that I think they hire out. So you have people that don't know the facility who can change the lighting. That lighting is on a dial that they've corrected. I don't know how they corrected it, honestly. I think it's just on a dial. Anybody can go in there and turn the lights on and change it. If you're a visitor to the facility, which apparently boarding and hiring out, they can do. The activity that goes on there, as I say, is perpetual. You can't tell when something is going to happen. It's 24/7. The weekends, we can't keep our windows open. We hear, and then the tractor goes around and around for a minimum of 20 minutes, 1 to 3 times a day, to clear that 17,600 square foot arena. So it's like someone's cutting the grass all day long to get it clear. So if they allow 6 horses as opposed to, I think they have 3 and 1 that they hire out, what is this going to do? Are they going to be allowed events? And a nationally advertised event went on there in December and is projected again for this future December. Are those allowed? Are the people who board there, do they realize all these restrictions? That I just know that anybody who has come to visit, without me saying anything, has commented on, what is that next to your property? It's what it is, and how is that allowed? I don't know what to say. I wonder why what my husband and me, what our thoughts and opinions don't seem to match. I want to know how our input is going to be thought of in this, because this has been going on, as they say, for 20 years. What has? The business has been going on for many years against county code. They don't have a business tax license. Why? Because it's not permitted. And there's no other business doing this in our area. And the different code you were talking about, the different zoning, I think that's in something called the Willows, which is part of that area, but not our neighborhood. We can't get to it from where we are, but our entire neighborhood, of which we built this home, my husband and I are builders, as our forever home, and it is not turning out to be the peaceful sanctuary we bought into. And I just don't like feeling like I'm doing something wrong by bringing it up. And, no one would want to put up with that, to have to sit out there and listen to this constant activity. It's not just neighbors, it's a business. So that's what I want to get past, that you would really think about how you would feel if you lived next to that. And I don't want to disagree with my neighbors. I don't. I went to them first and was told to move if I didn't like it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? All right, I do. How long have you lived there?
We bought in 2012 and built the home. We were in, our COA was 2013.
And how long, and it'll be a question I asked the applicant as well, how long has that structure been there? How long?
Since December of 2017. They had a dirt arena, I guess, there before.
Did you complain back in 2017?
Yes, I think it, when the lights first started coming on, and she said she would give us blinds, but that wouldn't have been enough. And the water runs into our yard too, right off 1,700 or 17,600 square feet, right into our yard. But again, we didn't have a choice for that to be built. They did. At the point it was just dirt, they could have moved before building and erecting that probably $250,000 structure. on somewhere else on their property, not right on the property line. And I say not on the property line. I know it's not right on the property line, but so close to the property line that it's the chairs to that is the property line. And that, it's like we're looking at it right there and hearing it. And if you don't give extreme, parameters on this, what's the extent? And when we sell or they sell, is it going to be zoned so that the next people see, oh, we've got a great 6-8 stall barn and we have a arena? We're out of luck on depreciation of our home. It's just
Are you
doesn't-
hearing, is there activity after 10 PM?
Yes, and my Attorney Colombo showed pictures.
Well, I see the lights and stuff, but I'm saying as far as noise, is the noise?
No, just the tractor, but no people noise.
Okay.
And the tractor is annoying enough, as I said, goes around and around, and 20 minutes at a time, and has to be. Yes.
Okay. Anybody, any further questions? Good. Okay, thank you. Oh,
Are there any other houses in this area?
Yes. The one directly behind me boards there, so they don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
And there's houses across the street. And again, when you pit neighbors against neighbors, nobody, I like them. I had no problem with them. I just don't understand the inconsideration of that. And they knew that it would be a problem. I don't know how you didn't know it wouldn't be a problem. Again, it's my own insecurities. I don't like feeling like I'm doing something wrong by bringing it up. It's just disrespectful and inconsiderate to change our lives and being able to sit out on my porch and read, have a cocktail, have a party. My husband coaches Mel High softball. He's there right now. They're in the finals, and he has team parties. We can't have activities. Easter, Sunday, the tractor's going and going. We would like to be able to use our patio.
but
And
what would they be doing that would prevent you
the
from having?
tractor going
The
around.
noise?
Yes, the noise, yes.
Okay, but that could happen on any property, regardless of what,
Right.
if they had horses or a awning.
Perpetual, though. There's not a break. Like, somebody would have a tractor noise maybe once a day, but for 20 solid minutes going around. And then, as the attorney mentioned, it's not just the horses. It's their hay, the dumpster that comes in. It's the maintenance of it, the painting, the commercial equipment that paints it, erected it, keeps it up, power washing all that fence. That was all done in 217. I didn't have a choice at that time to say we don't want this, or we don't want to move and build our forever home here. I would like to have had a choice in saying, instead of being up here while I'm not doing well, using my energy to point this out.
Thank you.
Is that good?
Thank you, yep.
Anybody? Okay, thank you.
The applicants, would you like to respond? Do you have any? You can use the remainder of your time.
How much is that?
Now,
I'll run through it real fast.
and if it goes over, I'll give you some more time, because I know we had asked a lot of questions before you were allowed to use your time, so I think that was probably at least fair if you happen to go over, so.
Let's address the lights real quick. Attention was brought to us in November. We've been working with the county to get it done. I went to every individual light, put a potentiometer on it, turned it all the way down. Nobody can adjust those unless they get a bucket lift and go up and hit every light. So that meets county code. It's not an issue. Noise ordinance, if there's a noise ordinance we're exceeding, somebody just needs to tell me that we're over the noise ordinance. When we built that arena, my wife talked to her and said, we're going to do this, and she said, that's fine, everything you do is beautiful, I'm sure it'll be great. The fence has been there since we built in 20 years, the arena has been there for 20 years with lights on it.
The property line is 5 feet.
It's 5 feet on this
that
side of the
way.
fence.
The fence is here, and then our property line goes 5 feet.
She built her house with the arena there. She built in a horse community. If she didn't
Can I
understand.
stop you real fast?
Yep.
So the house was built after the arena was in place. What about the structure?
The structure was new. But when
Yeah.
we built the structure, we went there and said, this is what we want to do. And she said, that's fine. You guys always do everything, as you can tell. We do it nice, we make it nice. We bring people in, we don't make money off of it. She's doing this to support the huge horse community dressage. And that's what we do. And none of the other neighbors have problems with it. We had neighbors at the zoning meeting approve it and are for it.
The commission
The commission meeting,
meeting, the
the
hearing, I
zoning board
guess.
meeting. I don't know what else to tell though.
In regard to the LLCs, that attorney was wrong on just about every instance. The Fawn Hollow LLC is the LLC we had to form based on our attorney's recommendations because we own a commercial building that we rent from ourselves. We own a business, and we run the business out of
395 East
Not on the
Drive.
property.
395 East
Another-
Drive.
a
So
different
that-
property.
Right, 395 East Drive, which we own Morse Communications, and we run, commercial cabling projects and security systems and data
on with the
networks and
next.
blah, blah, blah. The attorney set that up for us, so that has nothing to do with this. The Fawn Hollow dressage, we set up to protect the rest, according to our attorney, to protect the rest of our entities from a very dangerous
Horse.
sport. Horses are they're just inherently dangerous. So there is no checking account with Fawn Hollow Dressage LLC. I can't process payments. I don't have PayPal, so we don't get paid for this operation. The pictures in regard to the huge tent that they showed, that was actually one of our finest moments, because that was the Dressage for Kids program that we ran, we offered up. We got no money for it, but it cost a lot of money to run it. And Lyndon Gray, an Olympic rider, came to Brevard County and taught 6 of our very lucky kids I guess it was, people were invited from the south central part of Florida, and 6 lucky kids were chosen by Lyndon Gray to ride. And so that was a 2-day affair, and we had to rent temporary stalls for those riders to bring their own horses. But I don't know, if you'd call that a professional operation. I just donated my property for that weekend, that's all. What else did he say?
Well, the same thing with the dressage show at night. We had another professional trainer come in, and people were invited to watch him train and give lessons on horses to help the community and help the sport.
We're trying to introduce dressage a little bit better into Brevard
It's
County.
no different than you having a party at your house. I mean, I don't understand why, you have people come cut your grass, we have farriers come in and take care of the horses. I pressure washed that fence. I've been pressure washing it for 20 years. It always happens. There's 5 acres across fence. There's probably 2 miles of fence. Has to be pressure washed.
If they're done
What
talking.
else did he say? I'm
It-
trying to,
it's-
you guys, there was, so much was wrong with that attorney's. I really don't know.
And there's no loudspeaker in there. There's
Yeah,
no.
we have no
s-
loudspeaker
speaker
system at all. I don't know what that was all about.
There's nothing going on 24/7, and we can restrict, nobody run the tractor after 6 o'clock at night. All they have to do is ask me. If they had something going on Easter, a simple phone call on Saturday going, hey, we're going to have an Easter party, can you guys not do anything in your arena on Sunday? No
Right,
problem.
well, from our perspective, everybody was off, right? So
So-
we went out and
I do work in the arena. I mean,
worked
it takes a lot of work
on
to
days
keep it
when we
up.
don't have to work,
And that is the exact same arena that's been there for 20 years. All we did was put a cover over it.
which is permitted.
That was going to be a question I had.
Yeah,
It's
and
all
I did
permitted.
go to Karen first. Before I even did this, I went to Karen next door, and I don't know if any history is involved. Am I allowed to
As long as
communicate?
it's evidence of what we're doing here.
Well,
It's just,
I probably
there's
shouldn't go
6,
there then,
there's
but-
6 stalls. We're not going to have any more than 6 horses. Unless we have an event like bring young riders in, we'll put a temporary tent up for the weekend. That's it.
and they're done by
And we can,
dark time.
we can go
I
through
mean,
them
I
and go.
don't want to restrict, if the commission, decides to go through, I don't want to restrict you more than a property, more than our rules already that we have in place, because I don't
Just
think that would be
equine
fair
ride-
either.
There is one property that's zoned AU. Our house is here, then there's the street, then there's the neighbor across the street who testified at the last hearing that the lighting isn't a problem, the operation isn't a problem, he has no problem with any of it. And directly behind him, so it's within 500 feet of our property, is AU zoning, that whole street. So it's not part of our subdivision. Harlock Road runs like, no, it's Washingtonia, runs this way, and our parallel street is Appaloosa. So it's really very close. It's just not on our street.
As far as the water coming off, after,
yeah.
I didn't know it was a problem over there.
She didn't
I
mention
rented a mini track and I dug a swale from the front all the way to the back. There's a 1.5-foot drop from the front to the back now.
It should
It
drain
should drain
now.
off, but her house runs right over to the same spot. So it's a low spot there. It's always been a low spot there.
It's like
Before she built her
Washington.
house, water always stood there. Before I built that, it's always been there.
We
It's just
always
low.
have water problems. It's just Lake Washington.
It's the area.
Yeah,
it rains,
it just
so-
rains a lot, and there's a lot of
I don't-
runoff.
Was
And
there
do you run
anything
your
else we missed?
tractor 24/7?
No, once a day,
Maybe.
maybe.
It
For how
depends on
long?
It takes about 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
to just, get the bumps out of the.
Commissioner Smith?
I just wanted to ask about the porta potties that
There was no
none.
porta
We
potties
had
there.
none.
There has never been any
I
porta
promise
potties on
you,
that
there
site.
were, I don't know why, I have a bathroom on the back porch to the main house, and everyone's welcome to use that, and that's what the little kids use. There were no porta potties at all. I would have had to rent them. I guess I can prove I never rented one. But no, there were
I mean,
no
we could take
porta potties.
we have a manure dumpster now, the dumpster guy comes and gets it. I could take that manure and spread it around the front yard if need be.
Well, we're
right?
trying.
We don't want to do
we
that. I don't
want
want
the
to stink
flies.
up the whole place.
So we spend $500 a month to haul the manure to the Cocoa dump because Melbourne doesn't accept it. So we're doing everything we can. We could have 20 horses in RR1 on that property. You can have 4 horses per acre. So I could have 20 horses. I wouldn't want to live on a property that has to deal with 20 horses and mud and flies and manure, and that's why I'm so glad they brought that picture because it really is, it's just beautiful.
So they said there are neighbors. How many houses are in your neighborhood? Because when I looked at this map, there is some RR1 adjacent.
They're adjacent.
Yeah.
The neighbor's straight to the north. He has
This
3
one.
acres. He has 4 horses.
Show
Across
me.
the street has 4 horses.
This is where we live.
Right.
Right here.
Right.
This
And that's what I'm
whole
referring
street
to.
is all RR1.
That's what
This
I'm
is the
referring to.
neighbor, and this is all AU.
So
Can you put that on the overhead so we can make
I'm
it
just
part of the record?
wanted to know how many neighbors have complained over the last.
We've never heard from
We've never had a
from anybody.
And the other neighbors,
I've never even heard from you guys. I mean, even for this item, I didn't even have any disclosures to make because nobody contacted my office. It's okay because it's not a complicated issue, or I would have called you myself. But I'm actually kind of glad because then you're able to come in fully with.
and
Just the facts.
other
Yeah.
neighbors come and ride in the arena. It's not like, I mean, the arena, we're pretty open with it because there is no other arena in the neighborhood. The county doesn't have a covered arena for them to ride. It's hot in the summer. They need
Okay, can I
lights
get
in
a
the morning.
motion to, if you're going to still continue to talk, I have to have a motion to continue the time. I know,
I don't-
again, I know we've interrupted you quite a bit with questions, but
Motion to allow another 3 minutes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lober.
I don't know that I need to hear anything else, but if you guys do.
I've got a couple questions too. Commissioner
Okay,
Smith?
any questions?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, go ahead.
All those green properties, those are all on Appaloosa, and they're all horse properties. Every green-colored property has horses, so this is clearly horse country, as you would have it. And that's why, when we applied to put the cover on the arena, bless my little girls, grew up and left, so we had to do something at that point. The riding arena was there, and we thought, well, we might as well let other people enjoy it, and that's what we did. That's why we applied to have applied to permitting to have it completed. We open it up to just, anyone. The trainers that come in have to have insurance and all that to protect the property, but essentially, it's opened up for people to come in and use because that's what it's for.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Lober.
Couple questions. First, I want to make sure I have a good understanding. You were talking about things that the attorney allegedly had wrong, and one of the LLCs that he referenced was called, bear with me a moment here, Fawn Hollow LLC.
Right.
And I believe, I'm just looking at it as we're speaking here, you had Bill Cananak represent you in forming that?
Bill, what was his last name?
Cananak. It's neither here nor there.
I think, well, it was, Gannon did it, but he might have had, Gannon
Oh,
Studenberg
Studenberg?
did it,
Okay.
but he might have had assistance.
Well, let me ask you, you said that there was a specific place of business for that LLC other than this location. What was
Right.
the place of business for that
It's
LLC?
Morse Communications, 395 East Drive
It
in
owns-
Melbourne.
Has that always been the case with that LLC?
Always.
So if I were looking at the articles of incorporation under address, it shouldn't say the street and mailing address of the principal place of business of the company is 2940 Appaloosa Boulevard, Melbourne,
It-
Florida, 32934?
That's
Just where we live, but
what it owns is it owns that building. But-
Again, I'm just looking at the articles of incorporation of Fawn Hollow LLC as submitted to the state under address, which is the fourth article. It says the street and mailing address of the principal place of business of the company is 2940 Appaloosa
Well,
Boulevard.
That's incorrect, but it
Well, the
does-
company, that's where it is, but
That's
the
where we
company,
are.
all it does is handle the rent that comes from our 395 East Drive building. We
Okay,
pay
again, it's
ourselves.
Not what
So-
it says. Registered agent also has that address in the articles, and then management has the same address in the articles.
We'll have to get that corrected.
And
has
it may have
nothing-
been corrected since. I'm just looking at the articles of
No, I don't think
incorporation.
it's
They're-
been corrected. We just keep renewing it every year since.
So let me ask you a couple of questions, and I truly don't know which direction this is going to go, but, pardon me, I truly don't know which direction this is going to go, but I do have some questions. If this is something that the commission is inclined to approve, just because I've had a real bad experience in my district with one particular entity that frankly has been on my problem child list, so to put, for as long as I've been in office. Again, if the commission is inclined to approve it, and I don't know whether they are or not, would you agree with respect to limiting yourself through a binding development plan? And I'm just going to go through a few asks that I have of you, and you can tell me yes or no to each of them. It sounded like that you were good with limiting it to no more than 6 horses. Okay, so that's a yes. And then I guess Tad and Jeff, would we term that structure an accessory structure? What would we call that? I'm just trying to determine how we should refer to that large exterior structure that's got the roof on it but no walls.
In the
Yeah.
permit, they called it a covered riding arena.
Okay. All right, we'll just go ahead and use that. Would you agree to not use the covered riding arena past 8 p.m.,
No.
We can't do that.
We can't.
because-
9 p.m.?
No, especially there's 2 people that work till late and they have kids. They can't get out of the house until 9 o'clock. So
But we
they're
can
out
agree
there.
to 10.
But as long as we're meeting the code requirements for noise and now the lighting requirement is down.
Well, the
what
thing is,
difference
you're
does it
asking
make?
for a change of zoning that frankly you may or may not get, and I'm just looking at what the concerns are and if there's a way to mitigate it. So you would agree to not using it after 10 p.m.,
I think that's
the covered
plenty
riding
fair.
arena?
That's plenty
And
fair.
there may or may not be more stringent requirements in the code. I don't know. I'm just kind of looking here. And then
I
as
don't
far
think
as the,
anybody would want to
And just so
ride
you
that
know,
way.
this is one commissioner's request. I mean,
Right.
we all have to discuss it. This is,
Understood.
Right,
this is
right.
not binding. This is just him trying to find out, so this
We're
can kind of
kicking it
direct him
around.
on where
yeah.
where his vote is.
And then in terms of the porta potty thing, it doesn't sound like you have a need for them. So would you agree not to have any, I guess we could call them portable lavatories?
We've never had any
No,
out there.
we have no
Okay.
problem with that.
And then I'm just trying to figure out a way to word this that doesn't create some sort of unintended consequence as far as the
Just throw
agritourism
it out there.
concerns.
We're tough.
So no commercial agritourism, and what I mean by that, because I don't know that we have commercial agritourism defined in our code, what I'm referring to is agritourism business in which money is exchanged directly or indirectly.
It's fine.
Okay, so if
Fine.
you're good
We
with
don't-
those,
We don't charge, we don't make any money
No.
off any of that.
We just either, we got to the point where we either had to sell the property so someone else could enjoy it who does ride, or open it up so others could ride.
Yeah,
That's what we do.
With those items, the no more than 6 horses, no use of the covered riding arena after 10 p.m., no portable lavatories, and no commercial agritourism as I just defined in the record. If Madam Vice Chair wants to make a motion to approve with those conditions, I would vote for it, or if she wants to make a motion to deny it, I would vote
You
to
can put on
deny
there,
it.
no tractor after 8 o'clock. I mean,
Yeah.
If you want to add that too to the
you can put on
BDP, I
there.
think that's great. No tractor after 8 p.m.?
And any training after 7, they have to use a radio, so they can't yell.
Right,
When
because
they
there
have
are,
radios, you can't even hear them talking.
the trainers tend to be loud, and so we do have a radio system where the trainer speaks into a microphone and the rider has a little earpiece.
So
you
no
can't
tractor
hear
after
them.
8, no yelling after
8?
8, no yelling after 8, okay. Yeah, again, I'll defer to Madam Vice Chair, but I'm happy to either support or deny it. I would support it with those conditions or deny it if she's so inclined.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I would like to know where you are with this.
Yeah,
It's your-
this
it's your
is my
and-
district, so, I think the porta potties thing is a non-issue. I think including that in a BDP is unnecessary, especially considering that that's, I mean, you've testified under oath that you've not ever had them on your property. And who's to say your kid doesn't graduate from high school and you get 2 of them because you don't want a bunch of teenagers in your house tearing up your bathroom? I just think it's unnecessary to add. As far as agritourism, I think if we go by what, if we agree that no agritourism activity as defined by the Florida statutes, except for the activities that you do now, and we could list those, I think that there's a general understanding of what they're doing. Ted,
Yeah, so I think
would that
what
be
we-
the easier route?
That may be probably so. I think what we heard was there's going to be boarding of horses, no more than 6.
Yeah.
There's going to be training or riding lessons. And then there would be, I guess, I'm not clear if there's events of dressage that are happening on the property or not happening on the property that are not associated with training.
And
Like
all
a
of them are
competition or something like that.
We don't,
No
we have
competitions.
never held horse shows.
No. Well, there'll be like if they had an evening of dressage on a Saturday night where the trainer comes out, 20, 30 people came out, had wine, whatever, and watched the guy.
Most of them were the neighbors,
Did some
though.
training.
See, I'm
that kind of
mostly
stuff.
concerned, at least for me, my concerns are the lighting and the
that's
noise after, but I don't want to restrict, I hate to call it noise because then it has a negative connotation, but I don't want to give you more restrictions than there would even be in a residential neighborhood by
Right.
saying you have to stop all activities at 8 o'clock because in reality, you know.
If you own a house and you want to
Right,
have a
exactly.
party, you should.
I don't
be
think
able-
you should be more restricted because you want to have the houses on your property, so, or the horses on your property. So, I mean, as far as the dressage stuff, I want you to be able to do that if it doesn't interfere with activity. Because at least for me, I mean, your property could be unkempt. There's a lot of things that you could be doing on your property, and me sitting on my back porch, if I have to see, that's my problem, essentially, because you could be outside, laying out in the sun. You could have a teenager out there, goofing off and cursing, whatever. I mean, those are things you're exposed to as a neighbor
Right.
that's sort of life, sadly, and if you live in a subdivision, a tight subdivision, you're even more subjected to that, and I get that. And your house and your run was there before their property was built as well, so that's something to
Along with
consider.
lighting, there were telephone poles.
I've
up
never
and-
heard from anybody else. I've never heard even from the people that came today to complain in my office, any complaints or any issues. So I would like the lighting to be, I don't know how we, do we include that in the BDP?
It's already been fixed. The
Steve
code
Novak
is,
knows all about it, he's approved it.
code's come out and checked it, it's been cleared.
Ted?
We got to
So
let.
there's an active case on the property for lighting, so I don't know that it needs to be
When did you
included
get your
in the
email?
binding development
Okay.
plan. Unless there was a certain time that the board wanted no lights, then there would be that, then I would say you may want to take a consideration
But
of
if the light is
limit.
not, if the
But
light is not,
The light would have to comply with code. And
right, as long as it
code for-
complies with code, I'm
Steve
fine with
Novak
it.
cleared it last week.
Actually, I think it was week before.
Bunch of-
So if we put that on the BDP rather than say, these are the things that you can do, if we say no agro-tourism, like I said, we've had an issue in the past with somebody just going completely off the rails with what they were doing on their property, and that's what we'd like to avoid. If we include the activities you do now, do you think that would be satisfactory?
That's more than enough. That's all we'll ever do out
Yeah.
there.
It's
And I
more-
would just-
That's all we want to do. I don't want to go we're busy enough. I just want the property, the arena.
So
to
it would be
used.
sort of redundant to include that they comply with the current sound ordinance. I mean, that would be silly, correct?
Correct. I mean, they have
Unnecessary.
the sound ordinance, and the lighting ordinance apply by zoning classification, so it doesn't necessarily need to be part of the binding development plan.
And in residential neighborhoods, they can have up to 20 horses? For their
What
size
it-
property?
Well, what it is They can have up to once you get over 4 horses per acre, then you go into a conditional use application. So as long as they're under the 4 horses per acre, which they would be in this case because they're only asking for 6.
I'm saying if the property wasn't changed, I was just curious because she had mentioned that if the zoning wasn't changed, how many horses could they have on their property?
The horses that would be allowed on their property would be considered an accessory use, and it would be limited to just their horses and their residential aspects. So they wouldn't be able to have somebody else come over and use the horses
Yeah, I
for the
understand
training.
that, but,
So
yeah, okay.
But it could be 20 horses, right? It could be 4 horses per acre that I own.
on the is the current zoning, yes.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was getting at, but, and you're okay with the limiting of 6 horses?
Yes. Aren't you?
I'm good with 4.
So Madam Chair, if you're going to make a motion, I just want to make sure that I know which BDP conditions we are and are not including so that I'm able to determine whether to support it or not.
Do you want me to go through them?
If you would, please. I apologize. We've just gone kind of around so much. I want to make sure I'm still there.
Yeah, I was going to see what these guys had for input.
I think your idea was good concerning the things not listed in agritourism, but I pulled up Florida Statute 570, and when you look at agritourism, it's very, very broad. So I think it's a limiting factor by putting that there. Do you do historical, but cultural, civic, or ceremonial?
No.
No.
Might you want to ever meet any of those? A civic civic could be hosting a
Well, that's
flower club.
Well, that civic is probably what we did with those 8 riders we brought in.
So I think you probably want to stay away from the definition of agritourism altogether. Because then there would be some sort of
So you're saying
BDP
be
issue.
more specific?
No, I'm saying don't mention agritourism.
Be less specific.
Yes. Yeah, if we wanted to keep it open for these folks. I mean, it's your call either way, but anytime
Could
you
you make it
reference
just
a
horse
specific.
activities? So we can't bring 40 pigs in
Non-commercial, Ms. Bentley, you think that would cover it?
But do you charge for boarding?
We will be.
Will be,
So then it becomes a
yeah.
commercial activity, and then we get into agritourism, and there's an issue right there. So that is,
Well,
I
could
don't
we
want them
be
to.
zoned AU and not charge for
Yeah,
board?
but there would be a BDP on top of that,
Oh.
which would limit
Very
you. So I don't want you to necessarily agree to this and find out what you agree to is probably not what you think. And the fact that you haven't looked at the definition of agritourism, but
Yeah, I never
you're
even
agreeing
heard of
it,
it.
especially when you've put in, I don't know how much that structure costs, but if it was even at
$280,000.
$280,000,
Yeah, I was going off of what staff's recommendations were, because if the board was going to move in the direction of approving it, I think, again, I think the concern was that we were going to have the nightmare we have.
Yeah, and
elsewhere.
agritourism is a moving target, so this definition has been changed numerous times. So that's another
Yeah.
reason probably I would suggest you stay away from
Maybe we should put
referencing
together of
statute.
the permitted activities? Would that be the safer route?
You can
Idea.
list, I'm sorry. You could simply list the permitted activities in the BDP.
I have another
The
idea, too.
boarding, the training.
Yeah.
If
I
you
think that might
want,
be the safest.
you could do that, or the alternative is we could kind of modify where I left it off before. No commercial agritourism, namely agritourism business in which money is exchanged directly or indirectly with the exception of boarding. It's kind of another way to get to the same area, but I think that covers the concerns that we end up with.
So, confused, I'm just a little confused. Does that mean that if we don't charge board, we don't have any problem not charging
Well,
board?
with-
But can we have clinicians come in and teach, as long as it's within the right hours and the noise and all that?
But they
right?
charge probably for their
They
services.
charge, and the
The riders pay for
the
that.
riders
But
pay.
but that's still occurring on your property,
Yes.
so that would,
Well, that's the same as paying a landscaper or paying the guy who cuts the grass or the plumber.
I understand,
right?
I just, the way that it's,
If you take that,
we can't say commercial then, yeah. Tad?
So I think that there's a lot of different options that the board could look at for the for the agritourism piece. I think what Commissioner Tobias is suggesting that the definition is very broad, and it does cover a lot of things, which makes it very difficult for us to enforce when we get into situations like we're dealing with in Commissioner Lober's district, where we have folks that take it to the extreme. So it's difficult to kind of find that boundary in between. If you wanted to identify just the particular uses that are allowed on the property, that would be one way that it could be handled.
But rather than delay them, could we take a short break and or you guys could collectively come up with a list? I mean, I guess we could always
Sure, we
modify
could.
it later. We'd have to advertise it, but a collective list of the activities that they do, and then we'll just have the BDP with these permissible
If
activities?
that's what you wish, yes, we can do that.
But you
with
could
them.
be as simple as boarding and training is what we do. That's it. I mean, it's not,
But you do shows, sort of.
well,
No.
it'd be, not really a show. It's more training.
Okay.
Right, so we'll
Right,
bring
it's
one
not,
person in
a
and
show
he
is where you get
trains.
awards and there are entry fees and all, we don't do any of that,
So,
but we have a
I-
singular trainer come in and
Miss-
teach.
And teach
Madam
multiple
Chair?
people.
Yeah,
That's what a clinic
not
does.
to exceed 6.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, may I ask the county attorney one question?
Sure.
Okay. So Eden, since the binding development plan would come back within 120 days, given the board's direction to limit the uses, would we be able to then bring it back like we normally do with the uses identified?
Yes,
Or would that require another public hearing?
so long as the board is clear to us on what uses they want to allow and
Okay.
and provide for.
Okay.
I don't
So-
think you could say, decide whether it's going to include agritourism or not, and then come back. I think you have to make that kind of decision. You
Okay.
have to say whether you're going to prevent uses or allow uses.
So the concern I would have is I don't know that it sounds like the applicant isn't, when we get into these situations where we're defining what the use of the property is, what they understand training to be, may not be what we understand training to be, so we probably need some more clarification to tighten that up, so it would be better identified for us and the applicant, so in the future, we're not looking at a condition in the binding development plan and trying to decide whether they're in compliance or not in compliance.
Or do you have a list of things that do you feel confident that you've got a list of things that they can't do, rather than use the definition of agritourism?
I think that if we have a list of things that they could do, that would be one way to limit the use of the property. I'm not sure that would prevent them from getting into the agritourism aspect because the definition is very broad. I don't
What
know
I'm
if Eden
saying-
feels the same way.
Maybe you didn't understand my question,
Okay, I'm
or maybe
sorry.
I didn't state it clearly, or maybe it's not a good question, a good way to ask it. But instead of giving them permissible things they can do on their property, can we give them the AU with the exception of, and then have a
Okay.
list of things that they cannot do, rather than say the definition?
Sure.
Let's get a
I
long
think,
list.
yes, we could do that, so.
I mean, we kind of know what the hot things are.
So, yep, Madam Chair, there's a BDP. It's either going to be inclusive of things they can do or exclusive of things that they can't do.
Yeah.
If your direction is to give them as many opportunities, then
And that's, I think, the way to go.
then I'll support you, but it certainly needs to be an exclusive.
Yeah.
Instead of an inclusive.
Yeah, and that way we could address the items that, we don't want on the property. And that would give you a little more freedom and a little less of us trying to interpret definition of training.
Okay.
Do we have to bring this back, or do we?
The BDP will come back.
Okay.
But I think we do need to understand if the training is one trainer teaching multiple riders and horses in a day, a day-long event, or whether it's individual owners having their personal trainers come in. It might be not as organized as an event. It could end up with the same number of people. If you don't care about the number of people being trained in a day, then you can just go with training.
Okay. So what kind of motion would you need?
The binding development plan should, if you want to limit it to 6 horses and limit it to boarding, commercial activities for boarding and commercial training, if that's what you want to allow.
I think we
and
were talking
lessons.
we're talking about something totally different. We're talking about going with an exclusionary, saying, we're gonna grant the zoning with the BDP with, with the AU zoning, with excluding these, say, 6 or 8 things.
Madam Vice Chair?
It's probably a little bit longer,
I-
but, can I finish,
Yeah.
please? We just want to have things that they cannot do, rather than things that they can, because they'll be permitted to do those things based on the zoning that the commission, if they so approve it, would allow.
Right, so then we would need to say, you may not do, these activities are prohibited, and list
Right.
them.
But that has to come back, correct?
It would, but you would need to give us direction on that now, because
Yeah.
we don't know what that is.
But what do I need to vote on, or make a motion to vote on now?
A motion to approve with a binding development plan that provides X prohibiting these things.
So we have to have those lists of things now?
The prohibitions, yes.
Because I imagine that
The
staff has to work this a little bit.
alternative would be to table it and have staff get with the applicant and come back
I've got a
with the
solution.
defined terms.
Okay, Commissioner Lober?
I was going to say, just to make this easier on absolutely everyone, and to get this resolved one way or the other tonight, why don't you recall this after we address a couple of other items? That'll give either Tad or Jeff or someone else in P&D a chance to print out all permissible uses within the AU zoning class. And then you can go through and say no to this, no to this, no to this, or yes to this, whichever way you want to go, and
And they
then
can bring it
recall
back.
it, and then make your motion, and then either it passes or it fails. And then it gets
Is
resolved
staff
tonight.
comfortable with that?
I like that.
Yeah, we can do that. We can get a copy of it for the board.
Well, the BDP still has to come back.
But at least you'll know what's going to be in the BDP,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
not ambiguous for staff.
Are you guys okay with that?
We're good with that.
We have no
So-
problem with that.
Sorry to put work on your plate.
All right, so do we make a motion, do I
I would
get a
just
motion
recall
to-
it.
To recall it?
You don't need a motion,
You
no?
don't need anything?
You just,
Pause it?
yeah, put it on pause for the
Yeah.
moment.
Okay.
Yeah, temporarily postpone, our expert here. And come back to it after, I don't know which items.
J1 or J2,
Yeah.
whichever the case may be.
You'll come back
depending on
to
when
it
staff's
later in the
ready.
meeting.
Okay.
So we just kind of hang around for a
Yes,
while?
staff will get,
Thank you.
okay, moving on
Next one's fine.
H3.
The Suntree Business Center LLC requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only for on-premise consumption in conjunction with a dog park and a BU2 zoning classification. It's located in District 4.
Madam Vice Chair?
I think Commissioner Pritchett is listening.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Commissioner Pritchett? Can you confirm?
Just gonna text her.
Yeah,
Commissioner Pritchett?
All right.
yeah, I think she said yes. Yes, I
Yes,
can.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Commissioner Smith is good with this, maybe we should do a BDP limiting alcohol for canines to .04 BAC. Now, if you want to make a motion, Commissioner Smith, I'll second it to approve it.
Okay, I have a card for the applicant. Probably only want to speak if you need, it's up to you. Commissioner Smith?
No, I'm good with this.
Commissioner Smith is good with this.
So I'll
I'll
make a
second
motion
his-
to approve.
I'll second as being good with it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Lober. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Pritchett, is that an aye?
Oh, you lost her.
Oh, we lost her.
4-0.
That's an aye, I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's okay. Motion passes 5-0. I just didn't want to not include your vote if you were there to give it. Okay. Item J1,
All right, so
Commissioner Lober?
I don't know how many cards, if any, we have on this. None?
No cards on this.
Okay, so the short version, since we don't have anyone in the public that's interested in speaking on this, essentially, we've been here before. I did have a chance to speak with some of the folks with Waste Management this past Friday. I don't doubt that they've taken steps, and I acknowledge and appreciate that they've taken steps to try to avoid being in the situation again. I'm not maintaining that this is at the same level that it was this past summer, but the complaints that have come in have been pretty substantial as of late. So again, it's basically the same pitch that I put out there before. I just wanted to revisit it since we've had some months go by and we find ourselves in a similar but not quite as bad situation. Again, my hope is, regardless of which way this goes this evening, that it's unnecessary. That was kind of what I hoped this last summer, but unfortunately, we're kind of back where we are. So I don't know what anyone's inclination is, but if no one's inclined to do anything with it, we can make short shrift of it, or alternatively, if there's someone that's inclined to support it, I'm happy to have more discussion on it, however you all want to go.
I don't see any lights.
Yeah, I've got one.
Oh, because, yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Lober, I wish you'd asked the same questions I had, but because I think your introduction would have been quite a bit different. So, because I was concerned as to why this was coming back. This failed 2-3, and my concern was, you know, are we kicking a dead horse dead? So
Yeah.
I did ask some questions to find out if Waste Management had, you know, for lack of a better term, cleaned up their act as you suggested. And I think you'd find out that quite the opposite, unfortunately, is true. So is Yuri,
I see him over there.
yeah, the last time this came up, there were October of 2020, there were 248 reported instances I got from your office. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So as Commissioner Lober, as you mentioned, similar but not quite as bad, you would expect that 248 would decrease. What you probably wouldn't expect is that would increase by 10%.
Did not expect that.
Because it didn't increase by 10%. It increased it by 98%.
Wow.
In April, this past April, there were 491 complaints. Again, an increase of 97.8%. So I take offense to what you said. Similar, not quite as bad.
I stand
think
corrected.
that's twice as bad. I supported you last time. I certainly will support you again this time on this one. I think this issue is one that is in fact not getting better, but is getting quite a bit worse.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the requested action in the agenda report.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lober,
Second.
second by Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Smith?
I'm not inclined to do that, and I'll tell you why. And you guys can pass it if you want, but I don't know how Commissioner Zonk is going to vote, so it may go 2-2 or it might go 3-1. But we're in a position right now in our country where employers have a very, very difficult time getting employees, and for a multitude of reasons. But the fact is, it's very tough. So being that on the front of my mind, I'm thinking, well, what does one do to fix that problem? I don't think it's within their capability of fixing it. They try and do what they can do to make it less, and the fact remains that we still have the ability to find them. And so we have things in place to find them and to punish them, if you want to use that word. So for right now, I'm willing to just stay that route. And if this continues going forward for another 3 or 5 months, I'd be right with you. But I think we have to give them, and as I would any, because I talk to a lot of business people, and they all have the same problems. They have people that don't show up. They advertise bonuses, and people say they'll hire, they'll take the job, and then they don't show up. People don't show up for applications. People don't show up for appointments, for interviews. It's just really, really hard right now to be a business person. So I empathize with Joe Schmo's Restaurant and Waste Management and Bill's Barbershop. So I won't support it, but you guys can do what you want to do. But I'm going to tell you right up front that I don't agree.
Commissioner Lober?
Yeah, just real briefly, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, as was said before. we can't fine a company, or we can't, in this case, impose liquidated damages if we don't know that the violations occur. I can tell you that we have people that contact my office and have contacted my office that have no idea who to call. They never called solid waste. They never called waste management. We have others that contact waste management that don't ever contact the county. There's no consistency with respect to it. My thought and my hope with implementing this is not geared toward punishing anyone. It's toward incentivizing better service. With the number of constituents that we have in this county collectively amongst the 5 of us, there's no way that it's going to be Ooh, that'll wake you up. There's no way that it's going to be perfect. I don't expect perfection from them. I think that's unrealistic and it's unfair to them. But that said, I think the level of service that we had, as Commissioner Tobias mentioned in April, was substantially below what we need to see. And it's not that I don't empathize with Waste Management's concerns and difficulties with respect to hiring. I think those are genuine concerns. But again, as Commissioner Tobias addressed in the prior meeting in which we discussed this, there are ways, granted costly ways, to make that less of a problem. You know, of course, there may be issues from time to time, but that's not what we're talking about, an infrequent issue or an issue that happens once in a blue moon. So again, that's where I'm at. I don't know where other folks are at. If Madam Chair, as she gets situated here, has an opinion on it, certainly that may better gear us in terms of figuring out where this is inclined to go. But I can tell you there is no consistency with even who gets the reports of these service failures, whether they go to Waste Management, whether they go to Yuri's department, whether they come to my office, or respectively to your individual offices. And I think we can do a lot in terms of tracking the 400 and however many, the 97.8% increase that Commissioner Tobias had mentioned. That may be an exaggeration, or it may be a low number. I don't know, because we're comparing one source, Solid Waste Management Department. Maybe it's really only 30% up instead of 97.8. Maybe it's 130% up. There's no way to know without that consistency.
Thank you, Commissioner Lober. I don't know, Commissioner Pritchett, do you have something you want to say?
I do. I'm not going to be supporting this tonight. Not that we probably don't need to continue looking at it, but I start calling other waste management. Everybody's having this problem right now of getting employees hired. It seems to be something in the state of Florida right now. It probably has a lot to do. Sorry, I ran in the door.
Oh, it's okay.
A lot of people are taking jobs with Amazon for driving, all these other jobs, and they're having a hard time getting employees. And it seems to be a statewide situation. I don't know what they need to do to fix it. They told me they've been offering higher rates to their drivers. So I think this is an ongoing situation. I think whatever we do to try to fix it, anything's going to be more expensive soon. But I'm not ready to do this tonight.
Looks like 2 for, 2 and against.
Well, I mean, I think I made my position clear last time, and until, and this is a hard thing to say publicly, but until our government stops incentivizing people to not go back to work, and that's a sad truth that exists. I mean, I don't know that, aside from paying them a ridiculous amount of money, and they've offered even to train their own employees and get their CDLs, so it's not even like that door hasn't been opened, and $2,000 sign-on bonuses, and Commissioner Pritchett's right. I mean, other waste companies are dealing with the same thing. I think they, sadly, this is the result of COVID. I mean, and until we get back on track, until life gets back to normal. But I have several friends that have small businesses, not just in this industry, but like restaurant industry and in similar fields that can't even get people to work because it's better for them to stay home. They making more money on unemployment than they are working. So I'm hoping that this changes soon. And I appreciate that when we do have a constituent contact our office, that the issue is handled quickly, and I know they're working hard to handle that. So I'm happy to look at this again in a few months if the situation is not better. But as our economy finally gets back on track and people get back to work, and when the free checks stop coming, then maybe we'll see a change. But I'm not going to support it right now because I think incentivizing people to complain is always a bad idea. So that'd be a no for me. So you can make the motion, but I think it's going to fail.
Okay, and I understand where you're coming from with respect to incentivizing people to complain, but to me, it's not so much incentivizing the complaint as so much it is informing us of the service failure so that we can keep track of it, because they're doing us a service, enabling us to collect those liquidated damages that we otherwise wouldn't be able to collect. Be that as it may, Commissioner Tobias, do you want me to push it to a vote, or do you want me to withdraw it?
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I don't think we need to, but I want to make some differences here. We threw waste management that had a gross income of $1.94 billion last year. Let's be honest, this is not like Bob's Barbershop that we're handing $20,000 out to. This is a multi-state, multinational corporation that makes billions of dollars a year. They make this, they employ lobbyists that I'm sure your office got calls from. They can't pick up trash, but they can hire lobbyists to call us and ask us for more things. And I think I'm really ticked off is because they came to us and they ended a contract and then hit us with a 25 or a 30% rate increase. These folks are not great actors. If they were great actors, they wouldn't hit us with that increase and then come back and say, I did the math. If each one of these was legitimate and we paid the full amount, I'm not saying each one, but worst case scenario, let's say they are, at the $25, and then let's say they didn't get any better. There were 490, they would get stuck with a $144,000 hit because of this program. I mean, do the math. It's at 0.00000. So if you're not going to vote for this now, that's fine. But let's draw a line in the sand. Because let's let them know, hey, listen, you can walk on over us, increase rates 30%, cut service by 98, and we'll take it. But at 300%, we won't take it. Let's at least draw a line in the sand so Commissioner Lober doesn't have to come up here again and get shot down like I do over and over and over again. So my question is, for those of you that are voting no, can we empirically say, hey guys, when they hit 1,000 a month, or is it 5,000 a month, or is it if they just don't show up? But to blame this on COVID, on a billion-dollar company, and compare it to a barber shop or a paint shop is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I bet you bitch and complain like I do when Amazon doesn't deliver the packages don't come in on time. And when they didn't like what the United States Postal Service, they found a way around it by creating their own. And again, waste management isn't to that level, but they're a $2 billion in revenue last year. So, and I'm just ticked off, not because they're a $2 billion company, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. That was their revenue last year. It's because they hit folks up for a double-digit increase. And that's very, very disappointing with all of our constituents out there that aren't billionaires that don't have those resources. So, Commissioner Lober, I would say no. We probably don't need to bring this to a vote. It sounds like it's going to be the same, but I certainly would like to hear from the other commissioners. What's the number that you will say maybe $25 is acceptable? Because again, October to April, what's that, less than a year? They're twice as bad, almost twice as bad. Sorry, guys.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, county manager. Oh, you're down there. This is kind of fun walking in with all you guys up front. When the governor signed that order, does that mean June 1, all of the extra unemployment goes away as well?
I'm not certain what the impact is on the unemployment. I do know that they recently, I think through an order from the governor, they're changing unemployment relative to how many times you need to start applying for a job. So I know that is changing in Florida. I believe you have to do a minimum of 5 a week to continue unemployment. You have to have at least 5 applications.
With the extra COVID bump of 300, do you know about that?
I don't know what the number is with that.
I think for me, Commissioner Tobias, I need to go look at that and see when that's going to back off, because there's like $597 a week going to a lot of people. And not only that, if you're collecting unemployment, you can also apply for free rent. I mean, it's tough. I'm not sure that I would go and pick up garbage myself if I had that option, or you know, whatever Amazon and them are able to pay, because their stock is way up, because this has really taken off for them during COVID too. So I don't mind looking at it, but looking at the market right now and the ability to hire or not hire, I'm going to recommend, I'm sure this is nothing you don't already know, you're going to have to get very competitive in those rates and figure that out. But I think this should be an ongoing discussion moving forward. You were in my office earlier this week, and we had good times, and all of a sudden we just got a really bad time period right now. So we'll be in a lot of contact, and we'll be paying attention. So
I'll go ahead and withdraw the motion.
And I'll just add that, you know, $144,000 hit to $1 billion company is not going to change the level of service or the complaints. I mean, the complaints may go up if we incentivized it, but they can't pull drivers out of their butts. That's all I'll say about it.
Madam Chair?
And can we take a 5-10 minute break to let Commissioner Pritchett get settled? Sadly, she was the multi-car accident, not her, of course, but kind of get organized again, and then we'll move on to the next item, J2, because I know that may be some discussion.
Before you do, can I make one very, very, very brief comment here?
Sure.
I was just going to say the 144,000, I don't know that holds a candle to anything that they look at in terms of revenue, even with just our contract. But that said, if they could put that 144,000 toward paying to get more drivers or to increase the compensation that they offer those folks, it might actually do something.
But my understanding is that they've increased the compensation, they increased the vacation, they increased the sign-on bonus to try to get people, and they've paid relocation costs to get people to move here. So unless they lied to me, I don't know that $144,000 is going to change the lady that puts her yard waste in bags and wonders why we don't pick it up. I mean, that's our calls that we get. We get calls mistrashed. Sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 24 hours. People call if waste management is 4 hours late. They're usually here by 9 o'clock, and it's 1 o'clock and they're not here yet. We get those calls too. So some complaints aren't warranted, some are, you know, and we're just grateful that they take care of them as quickly as possible. But, you know, everything's changed this last year and a half. So I don't know. I mean, it's not that I'm sympathetic and giving them whatever they want. I didn't like the double-digit increase either, but they were the cheapest company that bid. So those are facts. So I don't want to talk about it anymore if it's not going to come to a vote. I think it's, again, like you said, beating a dead horse. So 10-minute break. Thanks.
generally look at the dollar cost per pound of nutrient removed. So in this case, we oftentimes hear about nitrogen or phosphorus, namely molecules that contain nitrogen or phosphorus. So things like ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, phosphate, things of that nature. There is a secondary concern, and I don't say secondary in terms of importance, but secondary in that it's something in addition to this that is worth at least looking at, namely these microplastics that get into the lagoon that end up going into essentially all of the sea life in there, certainly all of the multicellular sea life that's in the lagoon, and then a lot of that ends up getting eaten by people, and it has the potential of ending up in our bodies based on what we do or don't do to preclude those microplastics from getting into the lagoon in the first place. So I asked Elizabeth to come out today to kind of recap some thoughts that she had with respect to this. I think she'll take no more than 5 minutes if we can give her that, just to kind of go over what some of her concerns were. My thought is at the end of the discussion, after we hear from the public, we can at least punt this issue to Natural Resources and to the COC to basically say, hey, is this something that you think is worth looking at in terms of determining some way, some formula to determine whether or not we ought to be using soil funds to preclude this from happening, and if so, really how do we factor this into projects that are based on dollar per pound of nutrient removed. There may be a great answer, a terrible answer, no answer, I really don't know, but I think it's a discussion that's worth having, and there's certainly some interesting questions. But if it's all right, Madam Chair, I'd like Elizabeth to come out, but if we can give her 5 minutes, I think that would be probably pretty good in terms of being able to get the info conveyed.
Okay, I'm fine with that, but we do 3, so if someone wants to make a motion to give Miss Elizabeth 5.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Okay, we're going to start with 3 minutes. Miss Elizabeth, you're going to be first, and Miss Sullivan? Hi.
Hi, guys. Okay, is this like adjustable over here that I can
Yeah, Don,
set something?
can you give her a hand, please, sir?
Oh, I think that this belongs to that. Here. Okay, you might have to move it around a little bit. Oh, there we go. Okay.
You got it?
Well, this is a little rough here, but I'll try to.
You did pretty good.
I think so. All right. Okay. I'm really bad at this. Okay.
Ma'am, if you would
We're
just
close enough.
state your name for me.
My name is Elizabeth Baker. I'm from Merritt Island, and thank you very much, Commissioner Lober. This issue is a very important issue. Microplastics get into our water a number of different ways, and along with the sewage spills and the fertilizer, it does contribute to nutrient pollution. Microplastic pollution is not a separate issue than nutrient pollution. A biofilm forms on plastics. We're seeing that in some of this, the plastic bottle cap research that's being done. They're kind of driving my point home with that. This biofilm forms on the plastics. Other contaminants attach themselves to that biofilm. It really acts as a magnet for chemicals and other microplastics, even down to nanoplastics. And one of the things that I have definitely noticed is the county and state and even commercial mowers throughout our county running over garbage a lot on the sides of the roads. And here's an example. We have a 5-gallon bucket and some water bottles. There's aluminum cans. This is a really, really common practice, not just in our county. This seems to be pretty much everywhere, but it seems to be the standard among a lot of mowing crews all over the place where this kind of thing takes place. This is just within the last year. Another 5-gallon bucket on the side of the road. This is actually a 4x4 on the side of the road that was run over. Everything from building materials to couch cushions. This was on 528 just 2 weeks ago. They swore they cleaned it up. I went back out a couple days later. They had not. They swear they don't run over stuff on the sides of the road, but there's the mower running over stuff on the sides of the road. Another issue that we have is a lack of trash cans and dumpsters in the area. This is actually the same bus stop area 2 years apart. It is constantly a mess. With all of this going on, I worry about the conditions of our drainage ditches everywhere, bridges, the drainage completely full of vegetation and trash. This is a really, really, really common occurrence. We also have businesses throughout the county that heavily contribute to the litter all over the place. We have Walmart here that is butted right up against a sanctuary, a wildlife sanctuary, and the entire lot all the way around is nothing but plastic. This is just a 5-foot section next to the Walmart on Merritt Island, and it is absolutely full all the way around. This trash can was after I had reported to Home Depot that they had a big mess outside. They went out and emptied it,
Question,
but they didn't
Madam
pick
Chair?
up the trash.
I'm going to allow you to do it, sir, but I really am going to ask that we go through the speakers first, but I will let you right now, sir, if you don't mind, but go ahead.
I appreciate it. Ms. Baker, would you mind just very briefly telling me what we discussed or what you wanted to discuss with the remaining items?
Absolutely, absolutely. So really what I want to discuss is what are the solutions to these issues? We do have a lot of problems. Litter definitely is a problem. So what I have come up with in the last few years is definitely we need more garbage cans and dumpsters. Every single bus stop in this county needs to have a garbage can. I mean, that's just kind of a given. We need a county investment into a proper recycling facilities. Eventually, that really needs to happen. That would be an incentive in of its own for our citizens to recycle. The other thing that I would like to see is helping some of our impoverished areas and even providing assistance to our homeless population so these homeless camps that we have all over the place don't become a major litter haven. I can show you pictures of that. I would strongly encourage environmental education, including PFAS chemical and microplastic education for all of our workers that are working on any grounds, whether it's mowing sides of roads or mowing the grass at the high school. That environmental education stops people from making bad choices when they're out there mowing the grass or spraying. They're not going to be as haphazardly doing it if they're aware of the damage that they could really be causing in their own community.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Lober, I'm sorry. Do you have more questions? This is almost like I've added on and nobody wanted to.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's-
that's all right. Let's go ahead with the rest of the public comment. We'll see where we're at.
Thank you, sir.
Madam-
I have,
Madam Chair.
is that you?
Yes, Madam
Okay, I didn't know if we had the lights right. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you. And
Since we
Commissioner
did
Lober,
it.
Commissioner Lober does this, and I just wanted to provide that same courtesy to you.
Okay, thank you.
On numerous occasions, he's qualified folks as experts. So you mentioned that you were Elizabeth Baker from Merritt Island.
Yes.
And I looked at microplastics. They are highly complicated, the way that we assess them.
Absolutely.
And how it impacts certain aquatic life.
Mhm.
So can you tell me what qualifies you as an expert in any of these fields?
Well, actually, I have been picking up trash commercially on commercial properties for about 3 years. Getting into microplastics just kind of was a byproduct by that. It doesn't necessarily make me an expert on microplastics, but it does make me an expert on litter. And I have really, really dug into the litter problems. I have picked up thousands of pounds of litter in this county in the past 3 years.
Madam Chair, I hope in the future we can stick, I think everyone deserves 3 minutes, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But I think that when we
Well,
offer
and I also
deference, we
don't
should
believe
do
that
it. Madam-
Yeah, it doesn't
Thank
take
you.
a scientist to
Madam Chair,
understand
I-
that.
I think-
sorry, ma'am.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
have to-
I think we should limit 3 minutes to everyone because Sandra Sullivan is going to come up here and God love her. We limit her to 3 minutes. And I'm sure she's picked up quite a bit of trash as well, but I don't want to extend the same 2 minutes to her. So when we do it, I think we should do it in fair unless someone established themselves
I will wrap up
as an
I'm
expert.
sorry,
very
ma'am.
quickly by
I'm sorry,
just
can you-
saying I would really like
No,
to
ma'am,
see.
thank you. If you're, hold on just
yeah.
a second. Thank you for this, and I'm going to have you sit, and then I'm going to let them finish talking, and then I'm going to let the rest come up and
Absolutely.
try to get the meeting back, so.
I definitely
Thank
would
you.
like to see code enforcement
Thank you.
doing more in the
Thank you,
area
ma'am.
as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair, may I just don't have a button here. They've not rewired it yet.
Sit down. No, sir. Okay, Commissioner Lober, now
Thank you.
please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, they just don't have the button moved from the
I know.
the penalty box
I
yet,
was
so
trying
it's
to
kind of
wait.
tough.
Yeah.
Thanks. But no, Commissioner Tobias, what I was going to say was, with respect to this, the reason that I think there's a little bit of a difference with Ms. Baker as opposed to other folks, and I did not attempt to qualify her as an expert in microplastics in any sense of the word, but she had put together a very, very large litter pickup that went a substantial portion of my district. Something that frankly is extrememely rare for just an individual citizen, an individual constituent to do. And she came to my attention in light of her efforts with respect to that, and they certainly made a substantial difference to improve basically the core of District 2, the dead center of it. So when she reached out to me with respect to this concern, things like potentially rolling up dumpsters to homeless camps, we can agree with it, we can disagree with it, but based on the fact that she's been there and done that, and she's seen certainly more than I would venture to guess all of us up here combined have with respect to litter, when she suggests that these are the areas that it accumulates in, I don't expect her to tell us the chemical breakdown and how the UV affects the plastic, but she can tell us where the actual issues are, and from a common sense perspective on matters that don't require expertise, what some potential solutions might be. So that's all, and that's where I'm really coming from with this.
Okay, you guys know how the way I run the meeting, we do 3 minutes public comment. If somebody feels the need to do more, you're going to vote. If it's not, we're not going to. And guys, the way I do it is we run through the comment cards and then we communicate, and I think that's kind of why we have this little thing now. So if we kind of stick with my routine and then next person come on, you can do your thing too, and then this is just how I think I get us through the meeting. Ms. Sandra Sullivan, you have 3 minutes. Come on up. And thank you for all you do. That's wonderful. Ms. Sandra, thank you for all you do too.
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. I'm not an environmentalist, but I care a lot about our environment. I was very happy to see this on the agenda, and I wanted to start first with just a reminder of what the citizens of Brevard County voted for the half-cent sales tax. To restore the Indian River Lagoon through financing, planning, constructing, maintaining, and operating capital improvements and capital maintenance projects and programs designed to improve water quality, fish, wildlife, marine habitat, remove muck, and reduce pollution, which brings me to the microplastics. There was an article last week from Florida Today about oysters. Is likely you're eating lots of plastic. It says a new study by University of Central Florida has found in the Indian River Lagoon an estimated 1.4 trillion microscopic plastic fibers clog the oysters. Linda Walters, UCF biologist, said of the plastic she and her students find, typically 1 or 2 pieces of litter of lagoon water, sometimes up to 25 pieces. Metals, toxins, harmful additives associated with plastics build up on the tiny plastic bits, and when consumed on oysters and other food and water, these toxins can build up in us. So apparently most of these come from, like 35% originate from synthetic textiles. So they're urging that the septic tanks and aging sewage infrastructure along the lagoon, that this is incorporated somewhere here in our, look at our wastewater facilities for processing this. I just wanted to also mention on the subject of pollutants that we just had a manatee mortality event. We just had a sea turtle event with the greens. The greens live in the lagoon. They're a coastal sea turtle. And one of the primary causes why they're dying is microplastics. And these are we're talking about threatened and endangered species. And I'm almost running out of time. But also, I found out about this issue when I went to science fair here in Brevard County. Our high schools have such a phenomenal, it's one of the best in our state, our science research. And when you go and you see the level of work that these high school students are doing, it is truly impressive. Maybe an idea to incentivize some of the research. And then lastly, I just say we could do other contaminant testing. I'm going to drop this off over there. They're finding that glyphosate and the stuff that we sprayed for mosquitoes and stuff build up in the lagoon. It's building in the manatees. That's one of the things that they're finding, especially in the last decade. It's very much going up. and that there is definitely a link to herbicides killing seagrass.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Matt
you.
Lawrence?
I'll be quick. I'm Matt Lawrence, business owner in Merritt Island. That's our tractor, DBI's tractor. The last thing that tractor did was run over a monument from somebody's death. They came out, they put that 4x4 stump and some flowers, and that guy ran it over. He also ran over that. He was out there to clean up after they ran over trash. They sent him out. That's the 4x4 and the 5-gallon bucket. That's what they're running over.
Sir, can I get you in front of the mic, please?
This is what our contractors are running over. We pay them $17 million a year to mow from US 1 to A1A. Pick up the trash and mow. We even have Keep Brevard Beautiful teaming up with them for additional help. It's like they're in competition with each other. They're mowing over trash to make work for them. They're leaving the trash to make work for them. They're pointing the fingers both ways, but they're running over the trash and it's getting into the lagoons. They're doing it constantly. We're on the phone 3-4 times a week, just pointing out stuff like this that's going to be floating away in the river. Not cigarette butts, not cans, real legitimate couch cushions. We need code enforcement to pull their weight on the businesses. All of our businesses are full of trash. Jersey Mike's, Home Depot, Lowe's, there's trash as far as you can see. You just sat on 95 for an hour and a half looking at trash.
Looked at accidents.
You were looking at trash.
Looked at accidents.
Because you weren't looking at the trash. If you look at the trash, that's all you're going to be able to see. That's all I see. I don't see accidents. I don't see other cars. I only see the trash. And for us to be inviting a bunch of bikers to Brevard County where there's no trash barrels, where there's no dumpsters, nobody cares, nobody's picking up the trash, and the people we hire to do the work don't care, then I don't think we should be inviting anybody here. I don't think we should be paying anybody to mow. In their contract, it says, we are not allowed to run over trash, anything bigger than a soda can. Meanwhile, the whole team has been trained to run over the trash until it's small enough to where you can't see it from your car on 95. We need to hold these guys accountable. We need to hold FDOT accountable, their contractors, our code enforcement. You got code enforcement picking on kids having a yard sale, and their Home Depot fertilizer pile has been leaking into the storm drain for months. Where's our code enforcement? Why is he picking on kids and people building sheds? That's it.
Thank you, sir. I have Ms. Del Bailey.
Good evening, Stell Bailey, Cocoa, Florida. I just want to say Elizabeth that brought this forward has done such an incredible job. Even myself, going out and doing litter cleanups for 4 hours straight, I never realized the amount of trash that is on the side of the roads, clogging up drains, and that are directly next to the Indian River Lagoon. It is so incredibly important, if you haven't done it, to go out and do one litter cleanup and see how much trash, and when it's mowed over, how incredibly hard it is to pick it up. It's much easier to pick up a full cup than it is a billion different little pieces of a cup. And this is just from experience of going out with her. She has completely and utterly inspired me to really look into this issue because of how passionate she is about the issues with plastic pollution and these microplastics and the nanoplastics that do get into the Indian River Lagoon. There are studies that it's getting into our oysters and bottom feeding. You know, it goes up the food chain, it bioaccumulates, you know, that wonderful word, bioaccumulates. And I just wanted to come because I wanted to bring forward some ideas for you guys, some solutions. One solution could be promoting water refill stations and even reverse vending machines. If you haven't heard of what these machines are, they accept bottles for recycling and give consumer a refund. And they're usually placed in cities with container deposit laws, but You can get these machines paid for and maintained by beverage companies. So that could be something to look into, and they could offer consumer discounts. It will just promote, awareness on top of actually doing something about the problem. And potentially identifying pollution hotspots by using technology to empower people to crowdsource a clean planet. So what you could do is something like create an app for people to take images of the litter on their phones and upload it to a public map. That could also bring a lot more awareness, and that's also in return bringing awareness to the Indian River Lagoon issues. That's something that we really need in this county. We need people to care more about our water quality and what's going into our soil. So that could be another way to fix that as a solution. Recognize businesses and leaders who are cutting plastic waste. Maybe find an incentive or some way to recognize that they're doing good for our environment here in Brevard County. And hold businesses on the opposite end of that accountable for their plastic pollution. Many retailers, like McDonald's and Burger King, refuse to take responsibility for litter created in their parking lots. So have the city require that all fast food operations have, for instance, a trash can at the exit of the drive-through lanes, and they must empty them before they overflow. Thank you, you guys. Have a good evening.
You jump in here.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief here to the extent that I can. This is something, as Commissioner Tobias had mentioned, where there's a question of, well, what's the expertise that the folks we have speaking here today bring with them? As I said, I don't, and this isn't a slight to them, I'm not an expert myself in this matter. I don't believe any of them are experts in microplastics and microplastic degradation. I don't think that's the case. Now, that said, we have folks that have a lot more knowledge. Our natural resources director went to Duke, certainly not the easiest school to get into by any means. We have folks on the COC that have the ability to access professionals locally and in the area that do have a higher level of knowledge than probably everyone put in this room put together. That said, I would just ask that we send either to Natural Resources, I think, and to the COC, or at least or to the COC, depending on what your comfort is, basically a request that they look at these issues. Frankly, I anticipate there are going to be some where they say, look, it's just not cost advantageous to even bother with doing this particular item. But there may be other items that have been mentioned that are worth looking at and that are worth determining if there is an easy way to prioritize them. Maybe there's not. I don't know. But I think the question should be discussed. I think it's something that, again, it does in terms of the impact of having these bioplastics and whether bioaccumulation is really a horrible thing or just an unfortunate thing. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you, as someone who isn't an expert, if you gave me one fish and you said this has a pound of plastic in it that's microscopic that you can eat, or you have this other fish that we got wild caught that was in the middle of the Atlantic that doesn't have that level of plastic. It's not a hard question for me to determine which of the two fish I'm going to eat. I don't know that manatees have those choices. I don't know that folks going in the river that are fishing and eating what they catch necessarily have that choice. So I would just ask that we send this to Natural Resources and send it to the COC and just have them take a look at it, determine if any of these concerns can be addressed in a cost-feasible way, and if they have the ability to do so, advise us whether or not there is some way that we can determine whether or not these should be funded, at least in part, out of a portion of the sorrel tax. And maybe it's a small portion, maybe it's 0.5%. I don't know, but that's what I would ask.
Commissioner Lober, I might have missed something here, maybe I didn't grab something, but which ones specifically are you talking about?
So
Did you have a list?
Yeah, the big one for me is the microplastics.
Okay.
I think that's
How do you want them to look at them, sir?
I'd like them to determine, as far as the COC in particular, I'd like them to determine if, number one, if they're a concern to the COC, and number two, if they are a concern, assuming we've met number one, whether or not they can identify or suggest a way of integrating them into the priority scheme that we have with respect to the sorrel half-cent tax. If they can't, maybe they can't, But, my thought is if they do believe that this is a concern that warrants its inclusion, certainly we'll have a better ability to go from there. If they say it's not something that's a concern, obviously we may have to go in a different direction or no direction at all. But I think, it's something beyond my expertise and respectfully beyond everyone's expertise up here.
Okay, so it could kind of be a concern. I'm guessing we're trying to figure out what they could do about it. I think it's a really big problem. I'm not sure how much we can solve here. Commissioner Zonka?
Who's the representative on the IRL? Is it Kurt Smith? Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
I mean, I would, instead of directing the COC or the IRL or our Natural Resources Director to do anything, I would say Commissioner Smith is our representative. I don't think anybody here would deny that there's an issue with microplastics. But, the people that came and spoke today also have the opportunity to address the board. I hesitate to give direction and ask anybody to move forward with, or I would caution anybody to move forward with asking them to modify the plan because we don't have the information. We don't have the science. I believe that if our Natural Resources Director, given her level of expertise, wants it on the priority list, or if Commissioner Smith wants the board to look at it, he can bring it to the board. But he is our representative, and again, I haven't seen anything that's so overwhelming that I feel compelled to direct them to reprioritize the plan. So I would suggest either bringing it to that board, or Commissioner Smith can ask the question at the board, but to do something formal, I don't want to look like the commission is strong-arming anybody into doing anything, or I don't want the wrong impression to be given based on the desire to remove the microplastics.
Well, I'll just jump in here and say I think it's worthwhile to look at. And like you, I see the problem. I don't see a solution.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I would defer to the Dwayne DeFreezes and the Virginia Barkers of the world, which I will communicate with.
And I like a lot of their ideas. I like a lot of the ideas with trash. And I mean, I think that would be a positive, but I don't think it's going to.
And I agree with them and you. It's disgusting. I walk my dog along US 1 and I'm constantly picking up cans and plastic bottles. And I carry a little Publix bag with me when I'm walking my dogs. And I'd load the silly thing up and dump it in my recycle when I get home. But short of that, it's roughly a mile in each direction. So I'm not doing much.
We almost kind of need to work on a program maybe of signs and fines. The problem's pollution, people polluting. We're coming along having to do all this extra work, but if there's a way to get them to stop polluting, that might be an idea of kind of controlling it at the source.
Education's always the best thing. How do you do that?
Sure.
Yeah. Would you push your button first?
There's no button.
Where's
They
your
haven't
button?
moved it yet.
Oh.
So give me a little leeway until they get it over here, okay?
Wait till the next meeting then.
Yeah, I don't get to talk today.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I don't want to force anyone to do anything at this juncture because we don't know what the answers to the most fundamental questions are. Which is why when I suggested the approach to the COC or to Natural Resources, or for that matter, if Commissioner Smith wants to speak with Dwayne DeFreeze, I trust Dwayne DeFreeze. If he tells me it's not an issue, he certainly has a lot more basis to say that than I do. Again, the first question is this a concern? So when you approach someone and say, is this a concern, you're not forcing them to do anything. It doesn't, to me, come across as heavy-handed. If they say no, then the question may stop there. But if they say yes, then it's that we're seeking their expertise, not forcing them to do anything. And if they don't think it's a concern, then fine, don't do anything about it. If they do think it's a concern, though, it may simply be that they've never been approached with this request, and as a result, perhaps they feel confined to stay in the sort of to color within the lines that exist for them at this point. And the focus that I've heard from essentially everyone up to this point has been, okay, let's focus on nutrient reduction, and then to a secondary degree, let me rephrase that. Let's focus on preventing nutrients from getting into the lagoon, and let's focus on getting nutrients out of the lagoon. Those have been the two focuses. But these non-organics that we're looking at or talking about looking at now, they're just totally outside of the equation that they've been using up to this point. So I'm not looking to strong-arm anyone. I think it's just something that, again, as has been mentioned by another commissioner, it would be a good discussion to have. So if folks are more inclined to send it to the IRL Council, I'm fine with that too. But I think sending it to something like the IRL Council or sending it to something like Natural Resources, any of those directions I'd be supportive of.
Okay, let's Commissioner Smith,
Whatever-
I know him
whatever
well.
his name is.
Whatever his name is, gone left here, do that. But 4 years ago, we had a little bit of this conversation, and we changed how Brevard County we got rid of a lot of styrofoam items. So, this is something that is a conversation. We might be able to continue to working on that. But, a lot of these third world countries are loading up our waterways too. So it's a big problem. So I guess anything we can do that we might be able to start working on in a way, I'm in on. But Commissioner Smith, if you ask that question.
I don't have to tell you what.
You should have seen what I pulled up from there. I pulled bullets, the whole bullets, not just the,
What
the
the bottom
business end.
looks like is horrendous. And
Yeah,
I don't care what
glass,
depth.
plastic.
I don't care
Who'd
what
you
depth you
shoot?
dive.
I'm not going to say that on video.
Okay, so Commissioner Lober, you good with the resolve of this item now? We can move
Yeah,
on?
I think, Commissioner Smith, if it's something that you think we can address, I don't expect you to drop everything and call Dwayne DeFreeze, tonight at 8 o'clock at night, but if you think you can address it in the next several weeks so that we can have some sort of an update, let's say a month from now, if you think that's reasonable, I'll happily leave it be till that point. Is that all right?
Works for me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Ms. Bentley, are we going back to item H2, ma'am?
That's where we are.
Okay. I just need to say up front, I was watching the whole thing. I was on Facebook Live. I couldn't respond when I had that part, so I was able to call. And then I couldn't figure out how to push the buttons to talk, so I did hear and see the presentation. I started in right after the pledge, so.
Were you throwing things because you were frustrated?
No, I was making sure I was on mute, though, so. And Commissioner Isnardi, I heard your recommendation, so ma'am, I'm going to look to you to see that this is what you asked for, and then we'll move from there, ma'am. Commissioner Zonka, I am so sorry. What? Nothing? You didn't hear it?
I didn't. I was chatting. She called me Commissioner Isnardi again, didn't she?
I did.
That's okay.
Well, I get hey you, so.
Yeah, I forgot your name altogether.
Right? That's okay. All right. So I know staff had an opportunity to speak with the applicants. You can come back up if you like. And I don't know if you, I'm not saying this because I'm questioning your intelligence. I'm saying this because I know our code can be a little weird, and I know the AU zoning classification can be a little tough to understand. But Commissioner Tabaya and myself, at least at this point, and maybe more of us, are concerned of just saying this is what you can do based on this classification. Because if you do something and if you say, okay, I'm going to limit this to 10 people, I'm going to do this. If we do that and you have 12 people and you have a disgruntled neighbor, I'm not saying these folks today, I'm just saying, I don't want code enforcement at your house constantly saying, you were on your mower longer than 20 minutes today. So I just don't want that to happen. So exclusionary, I would at least propose to the board that we allow the change to the AU zoning under the current zoning, with the exception of, packing, processing, and sales of commodities raised on the premises. I don't know if you've seen this list.
I have
Okay.
actually with us.
So obviously not agricultural pursuits, but just packaging, processing, and sales of commodities raised in the premises provided in Chapter 86, Article 4. Dude ranches with a minimum area of 40 acre. You know that
These are what
item.
we're
Barns or
excluding,
stables
right?
should be 200 feet from the property line. These are the things that we're,
Excluding.
well, these are the
No.
things that you will not be permitted to do.
Gotcha.
If that makes
Right.
sense.
All right.
Fowl raising and beekeeping. Beekeeping? I say we kind of like bees, but if you have no interest in bees,
We have no interest.
Okay. Plant nurseries, private golf courses, private camps, foster homes, fish camps, group homes, level 1, subject to the requirements set forth in section 62-18359, landscaping business, mobile home residential dwelling, power substations, telephone exchanges and transmission facilities, private parks and playgrounds, and resort dwellings. The next group of items goes under conditional use, so that would have to come back to us anyway, or that would be a separate issue altogether, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you're okay with not doing those things,
Yeah, we're good with that.
did the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
and explain this to me, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing this. One of the conditional use permits here is boarding horses. So my understanding is they would have to come back to us to advertise for a CUP. Is that correct?
It is correct, but the conditional use for boarding horses is when we get to the over 4 horses per acre limit. So that's what that 20,
Okay.
number of 20 horses, as long as
Okay.
they're limited to the 6
Just to make sure, I didn't
horses.
want to limit the privileges that they already had. So
Madam Chair?
thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just a question, if I may. I thought that pre-existing uses are also permissible. So if they're doing that now, wouldn't that be permissible regardless, even in the absence of a
The
CUP?
pre-existing uses is defined in our comp plan and by our zoning code. So those are, when we start looking at non-conforming uses and non-conforming lots of record. So I think in this case, that would not necessarily apply because everything
Okay.
is in conformance, or they're asking to be in conformance.
Thank you.
And I will give the clerk the list that I read and make your life a little bit easier when you're doing the minutes. Okay, so, I mean, that was sort of like a motion. Was that enough for you, Eden, as a motion? Because to read through it again would be pretty,
We got it.
okay.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Lober, an objection. And they'll be getting back with you, and you'll be getting back with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have no public comments. We're going to move to board reports. County Manager.
I have no report.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bentley.
No report?
Commissioner Lober.
No report tonight.
Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is one of the first times we don't have the IAFF up here. And, you know, they're always complaining about, well, many things, but one of them is mandatory overtime. And for the rest of the board, I want you to take in consideration staff that's out here that gets paid a salary, not an overtime. So we have folks out there that are bitching and complaining about getting time and a half or double time, and yet we're turning around for folks that are getting paid a flat rate and having them here till 7:30 for what amounted to, as Commissioner Smith said, 3 issues. Now, there's nothing against the zoning folks, but please understand it's absolutely not. That is your right, and I greatly appreciate that. But please, when we put stuff on the agenda, it's not only their time, it's the office time that go into this, but more specifically, it's staff that didn't get a damn penny past the 5 o'clock, a darn penny
Thank you.
past the penny. So I do want to thank staff that constantly goes above and beyond at the whims of the commission. Sorry, Madam Chair, for the cursing and the extra time.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll just make it very brief because it's time to go home. Commissioner Tabaya, I know how we can fix that. We can have the meetings at 9 o'clock, and then these people are on their regular time. How's that for simple?
9 o'clock at night?
No, he says he should not have a night meeting.
Vice Chair Zonka.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith, I would agree with that, but we want the people that do actually care or like coming, I want to be able to come. So I would suggest that we stop talking longer than we need to and repeating ourselves, and just be respectful that we are, using everyone's time. So
I'll
I would
do
suggest
better.
that in the future. And, Commissioner Tabaya, while I agree that, and I always thank staff, and that's why I only ever have one here, because their time is precious too. I mean, I would be hard pressed to say that a firefighter likes being mandatory day after day after day. I see those mandatory numbers come in, and how we fix that, I'm not sure. I think they complain more because it's 24 hours when they're mandatory. It's not 8, it's not 6. It's 24, and then they're off 24, and then they get mandatory again. And I know some of our district chiefs have actually worked in fire stations, so it's a problem. And I know it's a multi issue, or it's a multi-problem, I guess, multiple issue problem, but it's something that we should fix. And I do appreciate staff being here.
Madam Chair.
Okay,
See
go
what I'm-
ahead.
That's an example right here. He's going to talk again.
We already had our board reports.
We're done.
Okay, never mind.
Time to go home.
Let's go.
No, sir, not right now. I'm sorry, it's been closed. You're going to have to wait till next meeting or talk to somebody later. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, well, can we answer that right after the meeting? That part's already closed and voted on, but we will have that discussion right after. Hey, it's my turn. Where are you going?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Just 'cause I just got here.
I didn't.
I know, and you get so sleepy.
That's true.
Okay, welcome back to the front. I want to say that. It's nice to have everybody up to the front again. Wonderful that we're almost through this mess we've been going through. So thankful for our governor. I want to give a big thank you to Commissioner Zonka for chairing the meeting. You did a great job, and I'm just going to say, guys, I like the women chairing, just saying. And that's all that I have for a board report, other than I'm praying for all those people that got in an accident on the way up. There was 2 major accidents, so I'm hoping they're all well. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.